Peace. 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 So I just wanted to come on for a little bit, just build with y'all briefly. Excellent. Everything's going excellent. Thanks for asking, yo. Okay. Peace. Uh, yeah, I will that y'all been having a excellent day. I definitely been having an excellent day. The sound clear for y'all? Sometimes when I do these streams in a different location, the internet is not as consistent. I've been getting my study on with my uncle to get knowledge of self. That's peace. That's peace. One of the things that I always tell people is when you are invested in knowledge of self, which is essentially the study of yourself, you put yourself on a fast track in terms of exponential growth. You grow and expand at a rate that the average person does not grow at. And I say that because most people don't really invest time in personal growth and development. They may look at self help books here, there, they may watch a few YouTube videos, but to actually be consistent about studying themselves in order to elevate, a lot of people are not really invested in that each and every day. And when you are invested in that each and every day, you can actually quantify your growth and development. You can literally see how you grow and develop from being invested in a way that most people are not. So you grow exponentially. Everybody else just may grow just from living life on life's terms if they're observant enough and they're paying attention to the life experiences and they're learning from things. So everybody goes through that. But to actually invest time to deliberately learn, that forces you to grow exponentially while everybody else has a linear growth model. So, along with that comes a lot of different challenges because you outgrow the people who are around you, people who are not also invested in knowledge of self or that exponential growth. You outgrow people, and that's something that naturally comes along to territory. Peace. I've been getting on my studies, trying to get on my studies with my significant other to know knowledge of self. Peace, God. Yeah. And when we say knowledge of self, we're also talking about a personal journey. It's personal, but it's also interpersonal, meaning you are in the space of transforming your own psychology in order for you to also transform your sociology. So, your personal growth and development is going to ultimately impact those who are around you. It's going to have a social influence, a social economic influence. So knowledge itself is not only a personal journey, but it's also a journey of our families and our communities. But you're the one who's taken the initiative to begin that journey. And I say that, and it's important because a lot of times people may think that you can bring people along with you, and it doesn't work that way. Thanks, Mario. True indeed. Peace, Master. Yeah. So this journey doesn't allow you to take people with you because it's a personal journey. The insights that you gain are within the quietness of your own mind. Those times when you're sitting by yourself and you get an epiphany or you realize something that happens within your own mind. You could even be in the midst of people, but that realization, that actualization happens within you. It's personal. So it happens inwardly before it's manifested outwardly. The outward expression is the social component, meaning you are going to ultimately impact those around you. But the journey is personal. And unfortunately, we are not able to take people with us. You can't force people to learn what you've taken the initiative to learn for yourself. Those of us who come from a Christian background, we learn that in one of the prayers that we learned in church that talks about not trespassing against people, and then also not allowing others to trespass against us. So the map in terms of knowledge itself is something for everybody, but everybody is not necessarily for the terrain that allows you to navigate that map. And that terrain is unique to each person that takes that journey. Why is it hard to lend understanding? Understanding is to see. And when we say see, we're talking about your eyes. Unless you figured out the technology to take your eyes out of your head and to put them in somebody else's so they can see what you see, then you're not going to be able to lend understanding to anybody. A person has to see it for themselves. So, this is how that works. Understanding is equivalent to the number three in our supreme mathematics. When understanding is understood, that's three and three. That equals six, which is equality. So, in order to have that sense of equality, you have to share what you see with someone else, but it's on them to see it with their own eyes. And you can't force a person to see something that you see. Now, here's the key: understanding is comprised of knowledge and wisdom, one and two. So, what we can do is share knowledge in a wise way to help encourage people to see things from our perspective. That's all we have the capacity to do. But if a person doesn't have knowledge and they are not using a wise way to share that knowledge, then it's going to be very difficult to get a person to see things from your perspective. Let me give you an example. Sometimes, in order to get a person to see things from your perspective, it's good to put an example in the form of a principle because a person may be willing to receive it that way, as opposed to you pointing your finger at them, telling them they did this, they did that. Let me give you another example. Say a person is doing something in terms of how they talk to their coworkers, and They're not really getting along too much with their coworkers. Their work environment is toxic, as they say, and it's not a real positive culture at the job. And you notice that they just may not be the best at communicating with their coworkers. They're not considerate enough. So instead of you just saying, yo, and sometimes it may be good to just be direct at a person and tell them exactly what it is. But a lot of times, if you do it that way without consideration, a person won't be willing to receive it because you're not being empathetic and you're not being wise in the way that you share what you know. So you may look at this person and instead of just telling them, yo, you need to do this, that, and the third, because they already feel under attack. And all they're going to do is turn around and look at you and say, yo, you attacking me too? I don't want to hear shit you got to say neither. And they going to lump you in the category with everybody else. Instead of approaching them from that perspective, one thing that may work is when they're talking about the culture at the job and the difficulty with their coworkers and stuff like that. You've observed how they communicate with the coworkers. One thing that you can say is, I think sometimes people may not be open to receive certain things by the way that we communicate with them. And sometimes the best thing to do is, instead of asking them to about a task or going right towards dealing with them about objects, like, did you get this done or how are you finished with that? Speak, you know, for me personally, I like people to acknowledge me first in terms of our relationship. Ask me how I'm doing today, right? Have conversation about how I'm feeling or anything like that. And then talk to me about tasks. Some people, like, I may get offended if I haven't seen you all day and the first thing that you say to me is, did you get this done? You don't even say hi or acknowledge me. You're treating me like an object. Some people have a difficult time with that. And a lot of times, the results that you get from objectifying people instead of valuing the relationship is going to be certain type of outcome. So I may talk to a person about things like that and trust the fact that them reflecting on our conversation in the quietness of their own mind and in private, they may look at the benefit or the value of what I shared with them and strive to apply it to the situation that they're dealing with, as opposed to me making it personal and targeting them, because that's how they're going to receive it. I'm going to talk about things in principle. And if they're intelligent enough and they're listening, they may look at it as something that is aligned to a practical application that they could apply to their life. It ain't a personal attack. We're just talking about the results of how we interact with others, regardless of who it is. So sometimes framing things within the context of a principle may work better than attacking a person personally. Because once you get into that arena, we all got something to say. We all have a legitimate issue with the things that people do personally. And all that's going to do is go back and forth. So consideration is important. And that's a part of understanding. That's a part of it. But again, understanding is a composite of knowledge and wisdom. So in order to share that type of perspective in the interest of equality, it's important to make sure that we demonstrate knowledge and wisdom. And a lot of times that is one of the reasons that a lot of our communication may break down, or people may have the inability to deal with one another in equality, because they're not considerate. They just say things to people and not expect them to respond in certain ways because they really didn't put enough thought into, was that a wise way to approach this person or to say things to this person in that way? Were we considerate enough, or were we inconsiderate and then expecting them to respond to us with some form of consideration? It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. Right? So how long have I had knowledge of self? I knowledge 120 on September 30th, 1995. So by some standards, it would seem like it's a long time. But when you're really living this path in terms of growth and development, you realize that you have no said birth record, no beginning or an ending. And this is a journey that's going to continue for the duration of your life. It doesn't plateau anywhere, in other words. So it's not like you get at one point and you're like, okay, I learned it all. I'm good now. There is not a day that goes by, not one day that goes by, that I cannot articulate with clarity something that I learned. I learn something each and every day. Every single day, I learn something. And that's important because that way you can actually quantify your growth and development. A lot of times people just kind of pass through life like they're on autopilot. And if you ask them, what was the best part of your day? What did you do today? What did you learn today? They can't really tell you anything. What's my thoughts on the afterlife? There are many people who teach that and they believe in that. I haven't died physically, so I can't speak on that because I haven't died and came back to be able to tell you about that. So I'm not qualified to speak on that. But what I would say is there are various different societies of people who teach about the afterlife. And if you wanted more insight into that, you can definitely research those various different perspectives. And like Christopher said, energy is never created, never destroyed. It's never created either. Yeah, so I'm not qualified to speak on that because I've never been there. So today's the ninth. And in our mathematics, that represents born, uh, which means to manifest. It means to bring to life. And anytime you're talking about bringing anything to life, there's always a process. There's always a process. When we look at it in the form of our supreme mathematics, that's knowledge, wisdom, understanding, culture, power, equality, God, build or destroy. So, in that formal sense, you go through those particular steps. You start with knowledge as a foundation, you go through all of those steps until you're able to make something manifest or to bring something to life. That's just a formal way of seeing it. But bringing something to life, being able to achieve a goal and to execute, it requires a lot of qualities in terms of your attitude and other various different things as well. You can't be lazy. You can't be no procrastinator. You have to be ambitious. You have to have initiative. You have to have all of those various different qualities in order for you to properly execute an idea to take something from inception to conception, to take things from knowledge to born. So when you think about it, knowledge, which is one, born is nine, the 19th letter in our alphabet is S, which is self or savior. So in any idea that you have, A fundamental part of that idea is you have to realize that you have to be willing and able to depend upon yourself primarily to even fulfill that idea or to follow through with it, to make sure that you born or you manifest that idea. Self has to be the primary savior because it's your idea. you know, a lot of times people, they have ideas and stuff and they pass it off to somebody else or they expect other people to take the weight and the responsibility of something that they came up with. And then when it doesn't go the way that they had an idea or plan, they turn it into a blame somebody else game instead of taking responsibility for the fact that you are the self that is supposed to save this idea. If you want to take it from knowledge to born, if you want to make sure that this goes from inception to conception, so when you look at a baby going through that process, a baby goes through typically a 9-month process, different trimesters before that baby is born. Once that baby is born from a physical womb, that baby is now born into a social womb, which means that child begins to go through a totally different process, which is likened to the same 9-month process that they went through originally. And in going through that process that child goes through, one of the key aspects of being able to take things from inception to conception is not only that ability to execute, but building the wherewithal and the weaponry to protect yourself in that process. When a child is in a mother's womb, they're protected. That's a safe space. Once a child is born into this social womb, you also have to create a safe space for that child and to protect that child. And in the process, that child is building the psychological immunity, the weaponry, the wherewithal to be able to grow and develop in this social womb and take things from knowledge to born again and again and again, consistently. Consistently. So when we also talk about knowledge itself, that represents another process of rebirth. You're in the physical womb and then you're born into the social womb. And then the next process is you have to learn your purpose in life. That is a key part of knowledge itself, knowing who you are and while you're here, creating some type of contribution to this world to make sure that it's a better place than when you arrived here. It says if it takes 9 months to make a physical composition complete, should we be two? Should we be two at 18 months old? That's a good question. Yeah, so considering birth or born in anything, it requires preparation. And one of the main things that we can prepare for is creating a safe space that enables us to not only protect that idea, but to strengthen that idea. The same way when a child is born, you don't take that child right out into the environment or around certain people because the child doesn't have the immunity yet. The child has to build up its immune system so that it is capable of being able to withstand the various different elements that are outside of it. And that's also, you know, why mother's milk is very important, because that milk not only nurtures the child and gives the child the proper nutrients, but it also helps that child build its immunity and enables it to develop cognitively. So, mother's milk is specifically designed for cognitive development. That's one reason why you don't feed a baby cow milk. Cow's milk is designed for a creature or an animal that has a very large mass. It's more designed for bone development because this is the type of creature that needs to stand up as soon as it's born. A baby doesn't need to do that, but giraffes do, wildebeest do, other large bodied creatures do. So their mother's milk is not designed for cognitive development. It's more built for mass. It's more built for bone development. So you don't take that milk and feed it to a baby. A baby's primary development is cognitively. And that's what the mother's milk is for, cognitive development. So anytime you're looking at our supreme mathematics, there are always going to be qualities, characteristics that go along with that principle. So, for example, if we're talking about knowledge, knowledge is not only to know, but it's also to be aware or conscious. When you're looking at that within the context of you growing in consciousness or growing in awareness, there's certain qualities that are necessary for you to be able to do that. Patience is one of them. Studiousness is one of them. Sobriety, alertness, those are qualities that are necessary to grow in awareness or consciousness. And there's various different other qualities or characteristics that are necessary in order for you to ascertain or to demonstrate that principle of life. It's the exact same way with all of the supreme mathematics. If you're talking about culture, if you're talking about equality, the ability to build or destroy, all of those principles have associated characteristics that are necessary in order for you to ascertain or demonstrate that principle. So think about equality, for example. Think about striving to demonstrate or ascertain equality if you don't know how to cooperate. How? If you don't know how to share. How? If you're inconsiderate. You won't be able to demonstrate or ascertain equality because you don't have the proper characteristics or qualities that go along with that principle. All of the various different principles in supreme mathematics have qualities or characteristics that go along with them. Born is no different. If you want to born anything, you have to have work ethic. You have to have consistency. You have to be able to organize things and be orderly. There are various different characteristics and qualities that go along with born in anything. So I just wanted to come on briefly, y'all. I gotta get on a phone call right now, but I appreciate y'all tuning in. Once I get some more time that I make, I definitely come back through and build a little bit more. Also, please don't forget to support my Atlantis School for Gifted Youngsters renovation project. I'm going to put it in the description of this video. Then I also put it in the chat as well. And I appreciate y'all. Have a beautiful night. And I'll build with y'all again soon. Peace.